All right, let's put this perma clutch together. I did get new traction clutches from John Deere just because the one had the tiniest bit of wobble to it. I'm not convinced that that disc was a problem, but we're here and we had a symptom, and so let's try and cover our bases a little bit here. So I got the old discs under here acting as a spacer to hold this plate up so this gear sits down a little bit. So the first disc is on, and then we'll, now I got farting around. Look at that, I got farting around, and now everything's out of position. We got our spacer plate on there, and then our second disc. And then we're going to need our big dividing plate. So I'll get that washed up and we'll get him on top. All right, so the big plate goes on there. This spring cup faces up for the PTO, and both of these plates look identical. Your traction clutch one is a lot thicker than your PTO, so that's how you can tell them apart. The thin one goes with the PTO, so we can put our PTO disc there. The gears, like, oh man, you know, I didn't pay attention to how it came out of the tractor. There's a little snap ring in there, so we have to go this way because we physically can't get it back on the tractor that way. So he goes that way, plus it kind of, well, I guess you could make it fit, but it just has kind of a natural fit with this hub going down. So he's gonna sit like that. I'll get this plate washed up and the other plate washed up, and then we'll be right back and we'll stack this up. So we get that, then our intermediate plate, and all these tabs or lugs we're lining up through that big hole, because that big hole is where this is coming through. And so we'll get that all lined up. He goes like that. We get our springs. And like that. And then I know what you were thinking. You were thinking set them bolts on them springs, but don't do that. It's a little tricky with one hand. It's tricky to rock a rhyme. To rock a rhyme that's right on time, it's tricky. Tricky, tricky, tricky. There you go. So now your PTO is separated. We'll put our big springs on. So that's like that, that's like that. Then we just got to wash that cover off, and the cover goes on. Fairly simple, fairly straightforward. If you only do once in your life, as a regular farmer, you're just doing this once in your life, it's very easy to get these gears confused as to which one went where. So obviously the big one comes first because the big one is going to be facing the back, and that's going to, if this was assembled in the tractor, the big one is first. You can't put it in backwards because of the snap ring. And so, yeah, there we go. So let's get that cover cleaned up, put on here. All right, so the really big hole is for them bolts to go through, and this hole here that comes through this finger for your traction clutch, that's where the bolt hole goes through. The big hole there hits the bottom of our PTO fingers. So I'll get him set on there, and then we're ready to put it into the flywheel. All right, so the cover plate's on. I take a ratchet. You're not reefing hard, you know, but run these 3 nuts down and you'll see it all compress. it'll compress. You don't want it super tight because we still might need to fine tune moving them dogs a little bit to line up perfectly on our dowels. But it helps to keep things from moving around. The hubs, it keeps them hubs from really moving a whole lot, so the discs can't fall off them hubs. I don't know if that's the perfect way to do it, but it's worked good for me, so I'm just sharing it with you. So at this point, we'll just slide her home and get her set. There you go. So when the pin is coming through, I just happen to have these pliers, so when them tangs are out of line, you can shine in that hole, and if you have to move a tang a little bit, you can do that. Teddy, hey, what are you doing? Hey, what are you doing? Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. So there we go. We'll get set up. Now, oh yeah, now you're giving it back, huh? So we'll get set up for the clutch tool, part number. Don't put that bolt in. Get our other 4 bolts in and get them torqued up. We can loosen these and get ready to adjust. All right. Karen's making a little noise with the scaler over there, but 35 pounds on these 4 bolts. Binga banga boonga. There we go. Yep. Do them again just in case something shifted. There we go. They come in our tool kit. Part number. That's very important because it's the spacing of all the fingers. Put him in. Release the bolts. Put the nut on. Put the nut on. Turn these into 30-inch pounds. Like that. I like that. That preloads our PTO plate in the back. The book will tell you to remove these fingers, but I leave them in for right now because if they all feel very consistent, I probably won't adjust them. So then it's a matter of just adjusting these. All right, we're gonna do the traction clutch. So we back off our PTO plates. That will tighten these fingers against our tool. We want these bolts when they're loose, when the nut is really loose, to just double check, twist them, and make sure that they're engaged in the plate back there because they're a square head bolt, and then run them in by your fingers to make sure they stayed in place. And then the goal is to get to 90 inch-pounds. And so you go around and around, and so first thing I do is take them all as tight with the socket in your hand, get them fairly close, and then go to 10 pounds, then 20, then 50. And so here we're just finishing up to a 50. And then we'll just come up to like a 60 or 70 type deal. And then you go around and just at small increments. That way we're doing the best job we can to get everything as square as we can. And so, yeah, I'll finish doing this and then we'll get this tooling off and we are done. If you had to adjust, PTO, you'd take this cotter pin out, pop the finger off, and you would adjust the nut there, the bolt and the jam nut, and you'd turn it a little bit, you know, and then put the finger back in and check it. And then you'd leave the fingers off while you did your traction. And so, but yeah. All right, put the jam nuts on. Be very careful, because now, see, your fingers are free, so that nut is easy to spin. So hold it steady, bring the jam nut to it, snug it up, and we're good to go there. We got parts for our hub here. Let's get this all washed up and put back together. Well, parts are here. The piston is the last one we were waiting on. The brake material is actually coming off. And how it sits right here in the housing, and it actually then lines up with this gear, and it sits right there and holds against that big gear, and that's your brake. So he's here, so let's get this together. First thing to do is get this guy orientated in here the right way, and get him bolted down. He has some very tiny bolts, these little guys right here. So I'll grab my bottle of Loctite. I Loctite everything. Maybe I use way more Loctite than I should, but I put a little tiny dollop on a lot of components that you probably don't need to, but we'll get him orientated, and then get him bolted in place, and then we'll start putting it together. So I greased up the new piston. There's your locating hole. There's your locating pin. You guys always say I need to show more assembly work. Boom. All right. I've got the gear set up here. For our lube reduction valve, you got a slot here, and there's a pin in here. I don't think my camera can get up inside, but the pin is that silver piece right there. So we want to make sure we orientate this valve the right way. I never tried putting it in the wrong way. Maybe you couldn't even get the plug in, but we want it orientated the right way. To get this gear, I use a brass, and then I hit the brass with a hammer. And when you get close, you got to get that goofy snap ring started, and then your last couple hits will get it low enough that then you pop that snap ring into place. Not hard. Only need 3 hands for a moment, but he rolls really nice. We'll flip him over and get the rest of this going. Not a whole lot to show you. Putting the PTO piston, let's call it the throwout bearing, and the retainer, the return spring assembly. Other than on this outer race, there's a lip right there. See how it moves? If you put that in upside down, everything will fit the same, but that lip will pinch on this return housing and this race won't turn. So just make sure you put that race in the right way, and you can see kind of how it fits there. Otherwise, the piston, lots of grease on the piston and the seal and on the housing, and it twists and falls right in. Nothing to show you. Let's flip it over, and I'll show you putting them springs on. So the big thing is just use the vice grips, some needle nose vice grips to hold that on, to hold the spring and retainer down. Then you just got to fight this little snap ring on, and when you're done, it sits in that retainer like that. So don't forget your locating ball if you have an early model with your snap ring. Putting this piston onto the guide, lots of grease, patience, feel it down. You might have to push a little bit. Definitely not hitting it with a hammer, but just lots of grease and just keep working it. It does take some effort to get over that packing on the inside, but it will get over it. If you feel like, God, it just ain't quite, then just lift it off and double check that you're not cutting the packing underneath that. But There you go. He's in and ready to go to work. I have no parts left, so I would say this is assembled. Let's not forget, before he goes back in, we got a packing here. We got a flashlight here. That packing goes right there. See how it's recessed? Clean it, grease the heck out of it, and the packing goes in there. But we got to wash this housing out. I'll clean all this out, get her shiny like my hiney, like we say, and then that housing can go back in. There we go. Looks like brand new. Ooh. Lots of, a little dab of grease, and that packing is held into place. I got a squirt bottle. I fill it with part solvent. Oh man, works fantastic. Look at that. They were dirtier on the assembly line the day it was built. All right, let's grab our housing and double check, make sure we haven't forgot anything, and slide him home. He's heavy, so I let it ride on the shaft. I got a couple dowel bolts and just kind of get him started. We got a PTO gear to get lined up. We can feel it grinding. But then we can come around to the side and we can make sure that this splash plate is in position. We can kind of see that our housing is positioned. Yeah, there we go. Looks like brand new. That looks nice. Both shafts turn good. 35 pounds with Loctite on the bolts. And then we'll get these little bolts. They'll be 20 to 25 pounds Loctite. And then we should be good to go. All right. Tractor's back together. I didn't show you much there. We'll do that. One of these days we'll show bringing the tractor back together, but that's not what this video is about. The clutch valve housing is aluminum. Aluminum is very soft. When you're cleaning it, don't sit here and just grind on a spot to get that little flake clean. If I want to clean this spot, I'm going to keep going over until that is clean before we even start with grinders on aluminum. I have this scaler. It moves, but it moves only a couple thousandths of an inch. But with just the friction of the housing on the table, you can start to cut some aluminum off. This is steel. This is aluminum. Don't come in hard because you will gouge it and you will remove a lot of aluminum. You can also flip it over the other way and kind of ride that bevel as well, whatever works for you. So first pass is with this, and then if there's some tough little spots, you can always take a razor blade and work on them tough little spots with a razor blade by hand. Then when you think you got it fairly clean, then you can bring out your die grinder. If you have a new Scotch-Brite pad, take a piece of steel and run that sucker on that corner of that steel for a couple seconds, or I use used pads. So then they don't remove much material, but they will go after the paper. I guess what I'm trying to emphasize is be very careful of these aluminum faces. How about that? We're going to move very fast. And I'm also holding it very flat. We're not riding on that edge, we're holding it very flat. And you're just erasing. Just like that. So there we go. I'll finish this housing and then do that housing, get everything washed up, cleaned up, and then we'll put it together. We got seals. You got 2 seals here to pop in, and then just slide our valves back in. There ain't a whole lot of detail to it. There we go. Everything's cleaned up. Seals are popped in. Everything's washed. On any gasket, try it in other positions just to make sure you have it in the exact right position. This one is a very clear, you know, you obviously have it wrong, but there's some of these valve housing gaskets that you got to flip it both ways and chase the tracks to make sure everything lines up. And so just double check your gaskets when you got these kind of mazes going on. So we'll get this on, torque. We'll go into this aluminum. I'll probably do like 15 to 20 pounds. I'll probably start at 15 pounds and then, yeah, we'll just go to 20 pounds. We'll just click them to 20. So we'll get that put together and then we'll go feed cows. A couple dowel pins hold the gasket in place. They also give me something to set the housing on to hold it as we go in, so we know we're going in lined up for these pipes. Bungee cord on the clutch pedal holds that rod up out of the way. The PTO, I have the dash off, so I got the luxury of being able to drop the PTO a little extra far to get that out of the way. Otherwise, all the way down is close enough to get out of your way. So then, hey, let's just put this on, slide her in, torque the bolts down to 35, hook our plumbing up on both sides, and then we can get this cab mount on and start buttoning this tractor up and see if it works.